I ran down that hallway as if the entire world was falling apart behind me. My shoes struck the linoleum floor, each step echoing sharply against the cold, white walls. The smell of disinfectant burned the back of my throat, mixing with the metallic taste of panic. My heart thudded violently, pulsing behind my eyes, in my neck, in every trembling inch of my 66-year-old body that suddenly felt twice that age. Ethan. My son. My only son. I never thought I'd be brave enough to tell this, but maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Before continuing, please subscribe and tell me where you're watching this story from, because what I'm about to tell you is something truly unbelievable. Ethan. My son. My only son. Emergency admission. Those 2 words had ripped through me like lightning when the hospital called. That was just 40 minutes ago, but it felt like a lifetime. I hadn't stopped shaking since. My hands clutched my purse against my chest, like a shield, as I searched desperately for the room number they'd given me. 312. The numbers on the doors blurred through the tears stinging my eyes. 308? 310. I was so close. Just a few more steps and I'd see him. I'd tell him it would be okay, like I always had since the day he was born, because that's what mothers do. We fix what's broken, even when it's our own hearts. But none of that mattered now. The only thing that mattered was getting to that room. The call had come while I was stirring soup for dinner. I dropped the spoon the second I heard her voice. "Ethan's been in an accident," said Vanessa, cold, detached. "He's at the hospital. Come if you want. Come if you want. No details. No comfort. Not even a trace of emotion. Just that clipped, distant tone she always used with me. As though my very existence was an inconvenience. But I didn't care about her. Not right now. I just needed to reach my son. 311. Almost there. My hands shook as I adjusted my coat, trying to steady my breathing. I had to be strong. I had to be the mother Ethan always counted on. The one who never faltered, who never looked away when things got hard. That's when it happened. A firm hand gripped my arm, yanking me sideways with surprising strength. I gasped. But before I could scream, another hand covered my mouth. "Please," a woman's voice whispered urgently in my ear. "Hide. Trust me." Her tone was desperate but controlled. She wore a nurse's uniform. I caught a glimpse of her eyes. Dark, sharp, full of something I couldn't define but that froze me in place. She pushed me gently but firmly through the half-open door of room 311, right beside Ethan's. "Stay quiet," she said quickly. "Don't move. Just listen. You'll understand soon." Before I could ask a single question, she was gone, her shoes clicking briskly down the hallway, leaving me in the dim silence of that empty room. I pressed my back against the wall, heart pounding in my throat. The air was cold and sterile. I could smell the faint scent of bleach mixed with the dryness of the air conditioner. My mind raced. Why had she told me to hide? From what? It sounded insane. But something about her eyes, the urgency in her voice, made me obey. Maybe it was fear, or maybe instinct. Whatever it was, I stayed hidden. Seconds crawled by like hours. My breathing steadied. My eyes adjusted to the gloom. Through the narrow gap in the door, I could see the pale glow of the hallway light. And then I heard them. Vanessa's voice, sweet but sharp, coated with that false concern. And another, a man's, deep and unfamiliar. They stopped right in front of room 312. "Are you sure no one will see us here?" the man asked quietly. Vanessa laughed, a soft, dry sound that sent a chill straight down my spine. "The old woman's on her way," she said. "But she'll take a while. We've got time, old woman. She was talking about me." My stomach twisted as I pressed closer to the door, my pulse thundering. I didn't know it yet. But what I was about to hear through that thin hospital wall would change everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family. In the silence between their voices, I felt my world begin to crack, and I hadn't even heard the worst of it yet. From behind the half-open door of room 311, I pressed my ear closer, my heart beating so hard it echoed in my skull. The fluorescent light from the corridor cut a narrow blade through the crack, falling across the spotless floor. I could see their shadows moving. Vanessa's slim figure and the taller outline of the man she was with. "Are you sure no one will see us here?" the man asked again, his tone careful but uneasy. Vanessa's reply came with a smirk in her voice. "Relax, Adrian. The nurses are busy, and the old lady's still downstairs filling out forms. We've got time. That word. Old lady hit me like a slap. That's all I was to her. Not Ethan's mother. Not the woman who'd given everything so her son could have a good life. Just the old lady." Adrian spoke again, his voice lower now. "We need to finalize the property transfer before he regains consciousness. If he wakes up, we'll have to explain too much." "Property transfer?" My hands turned cold. Vanessa exhaled impatiently, as if this was all routine. "He won't wake up, Adrian. The doctors said it themselves. His condition's unstable. It's the perfect time." I froze. My breathing caught. What did she mean? He won't wake up? "I've already got the signed papers," she continued. "All we need is your signature as a witness. I'll tell the hospital he signed before the accident. Simple." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. They were talking about Ethan's house. My house. The one my husband, Daniel, and I had bought 30 years ago, with every penny we had saved. I'd put it in Ethan's name when Daniel died, thinking it would give him security. I trusted my son. I trusted her. Now, through a thin wooden door, I was learning what my trust had cost me. "And what about the joint account?" Adrian asked, papers rustling in his hands. Vanessa's heels clicked as she shifted her weight. "That's next. There's over 200,000 in there. Once everything's under my name, I'll transfer it out. He won't even notice, assuming he ever wakes up." Her tone was ice cold, calm, almost bored. The man's voice trembled slightly. "You're sure he—" "I'm sure," she interrupted. "You've seen his condition. Every day he's weaker. It's only a matter of time." I gripped the wall to steady myself, the cold surface pressing into my palm. The air in the room grew heavier, thicker, as her words sank in. My son, my Ethan, wasn't just sick. He was being hunted by the very person who was supposed to love him. I wanted to burst out of that room, to grab her by the shoulders and scream. But something in me, something instinctive, told me not to. Not yet. The nurse's warning echoed in my mind. Trust me. So I listened. Adrian cleared his throat. "You know, if he doesn't wake up, the law will favor you. Spouses get everything by default. His mother can't contest it." Vanessa laughed softly, the kind of laugh that had once fooled me into thinking she was just nervous. "Claire has no legal claim. Nothing's in her name. She's just the mother, a sentimental old woman with no rights." The words hit harder than I expected. I felt them like ice slicing through my chest. 40 years of working, of saving, of raising Ethan. And I was nothing, not even a footnote in their plans. They kept talking about papers, signatures, insurance policies. But I could barely process it anymore. My mind was spinning. The woman I'd welcomed into my family had been plotting to steal everything. And worse, she didn't even seem worried that Ethan might die. Then Adrian said something that made my blood run cold. "And the pills?" Vanessa's reply was casual, terrifyingly so. "He's been taking them for weeks. The dosage is small, but it builds up. The doctors think it's stress. They have no idea." My knees gave out. I slid down the wall, clutching my mouth to stop a cry. The pills. She was poisoning him. Slowly, methodically, right under everyone's nose. "After tonight," Vanessa said, lowering her voice, "everything will be done. By the time anyone suspects, it'll be too late." My heart stopped. I wanted to run, to scream, to warn someone, but my body refused to move. And then, as if sensing my presence, Vanessa's voice softened into something chillingly sweet. "Poor Ethan. He never realized the woman he trusted most would be the one to end him. I didn't know how, but I swore in that moment I would make sure Vanessa never got the chance to finish what she'd started. I don't remember how long I stayed, crouched there on the cold hospital floor. My mind was a storm of disbelief and horror. I had just heard my daughter-in-law, the woman my son adored, calmly admit to slowly poisoning him. And not for love, not for mercy, but for money, the kind of evil that hides behind a gentle smile. I pressed my shaking hands to my chest, trying to silence the pounding in my heart. Each beat felt like it would give me away. If Vanessa heard me, if she realized I was just a few feet away, who knew what she would do? Through the crack in the door, I saw her step closer to the man she called Adrian. She handed him a slim folder, her manicured fingers perfectly steady. "Everything's inside," she said. "The property transfer, the business paperwork, the account forms. Once Ethan's declared unfit to manage his own finances, it all goes through me." Adrian nodded, though his voice trembled. "You're certain you want to go through with this? If he wakes up—" Vanessa's tone was ice. "He won't. The last dosage was doubled. By morning his heart will give out. And everyone will think it's stress or a hidden condition. It'll look completely natural." My stomach turned. Doubled. She had already given him more. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. The pain helped me focus. I needed to move. To do something. But what could I do? I had no proof, no witness. Only my word against hers. If I ran into the hallway and accused her, no one would believe me. She'd cry, she'd play the victim. She was young, beautiful, well-spoken. I was just the frantic, aging mother. No. I needed something stronger. I forced myself to stay still. I needed to hear more. Something undeniable. Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "Once Ethan's gone, I'll file the paperwork quietly. A week or two of pretending to grieve. Then I'll sell the house. After that, you'll get your cut, Adrian. I keep my promise." The man hesitated. "Vanessa, this is dangerous. You're talking about murder." "Murder?" she repeated with a cruel laugh. "Don't be dramatic. He's already dying. I'm just helping nature finish the job." My entire body shook with rage. The woman who had shared dinners in my home, who had smiled beside Ethan in photos, who had called me mom in front of others, was standing outside planning his death like she was scheduling a haircut. Adrian's voice faltered again. "And his mother?" That question made my blood run colder than anything else. Vanessa's voice shifted. Hard, sharp. "Claire? She's a nobody. She won't get a cent. Legally, everything's Ethan's. Which means everything's mine once he's gone. She'll probably show up crying, of course. She always does. But she can't claim anything. And once the funeral's over, I'll make sure she stays out of our lives permanently." I felt like the air was being crushed out of me. Our lives. As if she was already erasing me from existence. Tears blurred my vision. I bit down on my knuckles to keep from sobbing. I wanted to burst through that door, grab her, scream at her, shake her, until she confessed again. But then I remembered the nurse. Her voice echoed in my mind like a command. "Hide and wait. Trust me." So I stayed where I was. I don't know how long I listened. Minutes, maybe hours. But every word carved itself into me. Adrian finally muttered something about leaving before someone saw them. Papers shuffled. Footsteps moved. And then the sound of their voices faded down the corridor. I waited another 30 seconds before moving. My legs were so weak they barely held me as I stood. The room spun slightly. The air felt heavier than before, as if it had absorbed all their lies. I pressed my forehead against the door, trembling, and whispered the words I didn't know I still had the strength to say. "I will not let you kill my son." The hallway outside was silent now. I opened the door just enough to glance through the gap. Empty. No Vanessa. No Adrian. My body moved before my mind caught up. I needed to find that nurse. The one who warned me. She knew something. Maybe she'd seen what Vanessa was doing. Maybe she could help me prove it. I stepped into the corridor. my heartbeat still hammering in my ears. The nurse's station was empty except for a phone ringing somewhere in the distance. A cart rolled by. A faint smell of coffee drifted from the break room. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful. Like the hospital itself was pretending nothing evil was happening inside it. Then, from the far end of the hallway, I caught a glimpse of her, the nurse from before. She was turning a corner, her ponytail swaying as she moved quickly, glancing over her shoulder. Without thinking, I went after her. I didn't know her name yet, but I knew she was the only person standing between my son and the woman who wanted him dead. I nearly ran into her at the end of the hall. Letitia moved with the efficient urgency of someone trained to act under pressure. No wasted motion, no idle conversation. Up close, I saw the fine lines at the corners of her eyes and the fatigue hidden beneath her composed expression. She glanced at me, then without preamble guided me into a small utility closet, as if it were a battlefield command post. "Sit," she said. Her voice was low but steady. "You saw them?" I nodded, words spilling out like a broken faucet. I told her everything. Adrian, the property transfer, Vanessa's casual cruelty, the pills. My voice shook, but the facts lined up perfectly in my chest. Letitia listened, jaw set, then pulled out her phone and handed it to me. "It's all recorded," she said. Audio from the hallway, and the recording I made when she was on her phone in the parking lot. Marked times when she touched the IV. I had Dr. Stevens run initial toxicology on a sample from the IV bag. There are trace anticoagulants. Not prescribed, not in his chart. Her eyes were fierce. I'd never seen a nurse look like that. Like a soldier about to lead a charge. Relief and disbelief warred inside me. Why risk this?" I asked. She swallowed, and for a moment the armor dropped. "Because my sister died the same way. I promised her I wouldn't let it happen to another family. When I saw the test results and how calm Vanessa was, I couldn't ignore it. She spread a plan out between us like a map. First, secure more evidence. Physical pills, an admission, or video of her tampering with the IV. Second, notify hospital security to preserve footage and prevent tampering. Third, keep Vanessa in the room until detectives arrive. You can't storm in there and accuse her." Letitia said bluntly. "She'll play the grieving wife. She'll tearfully accuse you of lying. We need proof. Something the police can use that doesn't rely on your word alone." I swallowed and nodded. She continued. "I can delay her. I'll call for a routine check and tell her to wait by the desk. You'll go in and be the devoted mother. Keep her talking. Keep her in sight for 15 minutes. Long enough for security to pull the camera footage, and for Dr. Stevens to secure the IV bag. If we act now, we can catch her in the act or find the pills in her purse or car." The plan was dangerous. It required me to pretend the very thing inside me wanted to explode. A doting, naive mother. My cheeks warmed at the thought of playing a role one last time. But this time, as a weapon. We moved fast. Letitia notified security with a coded message, the kind they use for delicate patient matters. No alarm bells, just a discreet request to check the cameras for continuity. She told Dr. Stevens quietly to hold off on discussing results in public. He nodded once and left. Letitia handed me a small folded recorder I barely recognized, thin as a lipstick, with a note. "Use if you need to lure her into saying more. Don't risk it otherwise." My hands trembled as I accepted it. "Remember," she said, pressing my palm. "Act like you don't suspect. Cry if you must. Hug her. Do whatever she expects. But keep her talking about the money, about the house. Get her to mention the joint account or how she handles the pills. Anything concrete." I smoothed my dress like an actress preparing for opening night. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh through my tears. Then Letitia gave me one last instruction. If she tries to leave, stall her. Ask for a cup of coffee. Ask about her plans for after he recovers. Engage her. Keep her in the room. I returned to Ethan's bedside with a practiced calm that felt foreign in my bones. Vanessa glanced up as I entered. the same composed mask she'd worn since the beginning. She rose to greet me with a show of warmth that now made my skin crawl. "Claire," she breathed, stepping forward. "You're here." "That's good. How is he?" My arms moved on their own as I took her into an embrace, letting the hospital monitors hum under the surface of my terror. I murmured weak, wobbly condolences while watching her hands, her face, how she reacted to every word. For a full 5 minutes she played the role she knew by heart. Devoted, distraught, carefully rehearsed. Then, when I lobbed a soft question about the house, asking innocently how she'd managed the bills, Vanessa's eyes glinted. "Oh, I've thought about it," she said with a soft smile. "But there's plenty to plan. Estate stuff, you know. It's complicated." She laughed, too light and too easy. My chest tightened. She was nibbling at the bait. Across the room, the faint click of the security office came through the wall. Someone walking down the hall. I felt a small surge of hope. But then the closet door at the end of the corridor opened. A figure stepped into the light. Adrian. He'd returned early. He paused, his posture like a predator smelling trouble. He raised his phone slowly. "Smile," he said to the empty air, his voice a smooth, dangerous whisper. "You're on camera." Adrian's grin froze the blood in my veins, because if he had footage of us, everything we'd risked would be twisted into the very proof that would bury me. For a moment, everything stopped. The steady hum of hospital monitors, the soft shuffle of footsteps in the hallway, even the mechanical tick of the clock on the wall. All of it froze in that single instant when Adrian stepped into the room, his phone raised, his smirk perfectly practiced. Vanessa's head jerked up. For a fraction of a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Panic, sharp and fleeting. Before she smoothed it away, she turned toward him with that same disarming smile. "Adrian," she said softly. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer. He just kept recording, his tone dripping with mock politeness. "Just making sure we all remember this little family moment." I took a slow breath, trying not to let my fear show. My mind raced. Did he know what Letitia and I were doing? Did he suspect the nurse had looped security in? Vanessa's hand twitched slightly before she reached out and lowered his phone. "You shouldn't be here," she said through clenched teeth. "I told you to wait downstairs." Adrian leaned close enough that I could smell the faint trace of expensive cologne. Sharp, metallic, wrong in a hospital room. "You didn't answer your messages," he said. "I got nervous. You said everything would be handled quietly." A pulse thudded. Quietly. The word was a confession in itself, but I kept my expression soft, confused. "Handled?" I asked carefully. "What do you mean?" Vanessa's head snapped toward me, her smile returning like a switch had flipped. "Oh, nothing, Claire. Just hospital insurance stuff. Adrian's helping me figure out some paperwork." She said it so easily I almost believed her. Almost. But Letitia's words echoed in my head. "Keep her talking." "So I did." I smiled, though my hands trembled slightly. "Paperwork already? He's still recovering." Vanessa's smile thinned. "We just need to be prepared. These things move fast when the situation is uncertain." Uncertain. My eyes darted toward Ethan, lying motionless beneath the sterile white sheet. His skin looked pale under the fluorescent lights, his chest rising in slow, uneven breaths. Every sound from the monitor felt like a countdown. "I understand," I said quietly. "But he'll pull through. He's strong." Something in Vanessa's eyes hardened. "Maybe," she said simply. Adrian shifted uncomfortably. "We should talk somewhere private," he muttered. "Not now," she hissed under her breath. That was the moment Letitia reappeared in the doorway, holding a clipboard. Her expression was perfectly neutral, but her eyes met mine for a brief second. A silent signal. Everything was in motion. "Mrs. Miller," she said politely to Vanessa, "could you come with me for a quick medication verification? It'll only take a minute." Vanessa hesitated. I could see the calculation flicker behind her eyes. Then she smiled that same honeyed smile. "Of course." As she stepped past me, she brushed my shoulder lightly and whispered under her breath, "You shouldn't be listening to things that aren't meant for you." "Claire!" Her voice was soft, but her words burned like acid. Letitia led her out. Adrian followed, lingering just long enough to give me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then they disappeared into the corridor. The room fell into silence. I sank into the chair beside Ethan's bed, pressing my trembling hand over his. His skin was cold. I leaned closer, whispering, "I'm here, baby. I'm not letting them touch you again." The steady beeping of the heart monitor answered in place of his voice. Seconds later, Letitia slipped back inside, closing the door behind her. Her face was tense. "They know something's off," she said. "Security's reviewing footage, but we have a problem. Someone accessed the patient file system just before I reported the IV anomaly. If Vanessa covered her tracks, we might lose everything." I felt the air leave my lungs. "You mean she could erase it all?" Letitia nodded grimly. "Or worse, make it look like you interfered." The blood in my veins turned to ice. "Me? She's smart," Letitia said. "She could flip the narrative. Make it seem like a grieving mother trying to harm her son out of despair. If she convinces Adrian to back her up." The sentence didn't need finishing. My mind flashed with headlines. Police reports. Courtroom whispers. Elderly mother accused of tampering with son's treatment. I stood slowly, the gravity of the moment crushing but clear. "Then we get to her first," I said. "We get proof tonight." Letitia studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Security's working on it, but she's unpredictable now. Be careful, Claire. If she thinks we're onto her—" The door suddenly creaked open. Letitia froze. Vanessa stood there, her smile wide, her voice sugar-sweet. "Onto who?" Her eyes glittered like glass. And in that instant, I realized Vanessa wasn't the only one in control of this game anymore. She knew. Vanessa stood framed in the doorway, her expression composed but her eyes sharp, like a blade hidden beneath silk. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor filled the silence, every beep feeling louder than the one before. Then she smiled, that practiced, elegant smile that never quite reached her eyes. I asked. She repeated softly. "Onto who?" "Letitia recovered first. Just a routine follow-up," she said smoothly, flipping through her clipboard. "We were reviewing patient logs, ensuring everything's been entered correctly." Vanessa stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The click echoed like the cocking of a gun. She murmured, her gaze flicking between us. "Funny. I didn't think you needed a grieving mother for patient logs." Her tone was polite, dangerously polite. Letitia didn't flinch. "Mrs. Miller, I understand you're under stress, but we're only following standard procedures. The system showed an inconsistency in the medication record. We're just verifying." Vanessa's head tilted slightly, as though she were listening to a faint sound only she could hear. "And did you find anything interesting?" "Not yet." Letitia's voice stayed firm. "But we'll let you know once it's clarified." For a long, unbearable moment, Vanessa simply stared at her. Then she turned to me, her smile returning. "Claire, darling, you look pale. Have you been resting?" I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "I'm fine," I said quietly. "Good," she said, stepping closer to Ethan's bed. She adjusted the blanket, her movements tender and precise. "He looks so peaceful, doesn't he? Almost like he's dreaming." I could feel my pulse climbing. Every instinct screamed that I shouldn't let her near him, but I had to stay composed, pretend I was still blind to the truth. Vanessa brushed a strand of hair from Ethan's forehead, then looked at me again. "I know this is hard for you," she said softly, "but sometimes we have to accept what we can't change." It took every ounce of willpower not to scream. Instead, I managed a trembling smile. "He's a fighter. He'll wake up. You'll see." Vanessa's lips curved, but there was no warmth there. "Maybe," she said, straightening up. But we both know hope can be dangerous when it keeps people from letting go. Letitia shifted slightly, placing herself between us under the guise of checking the IV line. "His vitals are steady," she said curtly. "No changes since this morning." "Good," Vanessa replied, her eyes narrowing. "I'd hate for anything unexpected to happen." Her words carried weight. A warning. The air in the room grew colder. Letitia cleared her throat. "If you'll excuse us, Mrs. Miller, I need to speak privately with Claire for a moment." Vanessa didn't move. Instead, she leaned casually against the wall, arms crossed. "Oh, please, don't mind me. I'm family." That smile again, like she was daring us to challenge her. I looked to Letitia. She gave me a faint nod, subtle but clear. "Follow my lead." "Actually," I said, forcing my voice to sound weary, "maybe we can talk later, Letitia. I think I just need a moment alone with my son." The nurse hesitated, then caught on. "Of course." She jotted a note on her clipboard and turned to leave. "I'll be right outside." As soon as the door clicked shut, Vanessa exhaled softly, almost in relief. "You shouldn't get too close to that nurse," she said. "She's odd." I feigned confusion. "Odd?" Vanessa's eyes flicked toward the door. "Always snooping, asking questions. It's almost like she's looking for trouble. I've seen her talking to security more than once. Her tone was casual, but her meaning wasn't. I played my part perfectly. Maybe she's just being careful." Vanessa gave a small laugh. "Maybe. But you know what happens to people who stick their noses where they don't belong? They get burned." The smile she gave me after saying that was the kind that curdles blood. Cold, confident, and deadly. She leaned down, touching Ethan's hand as if to comfort him. "Rest easy, my love," she whispered. "You deserve peace." My throat tightened. She was still acting, still pretending. Every word that left her mouth felt rehearsed, like she was performing for an invisible audience. And then she turned toward me again, her tone suddenly sweet. "By the way, Claire, I noticed you've been spending quite a bit of time here lately. Late nights, long visits. You must be exhausted." "I'm fine," I said again, this time more firmly. "Good," she said softly, "because I'd hate for anyone to think you were interfering with his treatment. That could get complicated for you, don't you think?" The meaning hit me like a slap. She was planting the seed, laying the groundwork for her lie. I forced a calm breath, but my heart was pounding. "What are you saying, Vanessa?" She smiled, pure venom behind her teeth. "Oh, nothing really, just accidents happen, especially when people are emotional." At that exact moment, the intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Miller," a voice announced over the speaker. "Please report to the nurse's station. There's a matter concerning your husband's insurance." Vanessa's expression didn't flicker, but I saw it. Letitia's words hung in the air like smoke. She didn't make the call. I stared at her, confused, my pulse thrumming in my throat. "Then who?" But before I could finish, Letitia was already moving, pulling out her tablet and logging into the hospital's internal system. Her fingers flew across the screen, her face tightening with every passing second. "This isn't possible," she muttered. "What isn't?" I asked, stepping closer. She turned the screen toward me. My breath caught. On the digital patient chart, under primary contact, was a name that shouldn't have been there. Vanessa Miller. Spouse. Spouse. Not fiancé. Not partner. Spouse. She changed it. Letitia whispered. "She's already altered the file. That's why the intercom said husband. Because on paper, Ethan is now listed as her legal husband." My stomach dropped. "But they weren't married yet," I said. "They were planning the wedding for next month." "She must have forged the certificate," Letitia said grimly. "Hospitals take spousal claims seriously. It gives her automatic decision rights if his condition worsens." My hands trembled as I sank into the nearest chair. "Decision rights?" Letitia nodded. "If the doctors can't reach you, Or if she argues you're too emotional to decide, she can authorize or refuse treatment. She could even... She stopped herself, but I knew what she meant. She could end his life. I felt dizzy. The room tilted slightly, the hum of machines blending into an indistinct roar in my ears. My son's life, his very breath, was now in the hands of the woman trying to kill him. Letitia was already typing again, her voice sharp. "I'm sending this to security and Dr. Stevens. We can prove the document was uploaded within the last 2 hours. That'll buy us time." I could only nod, my thoughts scattered. Time. That was all we needed now. Just enough to expose her before she made her next move. Moments later, Vanessa re-entered the room. Her expression was composed, but a hint of frustration rippled beneath her smile. "False alarm," she said lightly. "Some mix-up at the desk." I forced my voice to stay steady. "Everything all right?" "Oh, yes," she said. "Though they really should be more careful. Imagine if someone had the wrong information." Her eyes flicked toward Letitia, who gave a polite professional nod but said nothing. Vanessa smoothed Ethan's blanket, her movements slow and deliberate. "I think I'll stay the night," she said. "Hospitals make mistakes. I'd rather keep an eye on things myself." The way she said it made my skin crawl. Letitia's hand brushed against mine as she passed behind me. A silent signal. I understood. "Don't react." Vanessa pulled a small makeup mirror from her purse, checked her reflection, then smiled faintly at Ethan. "He was always stubborn," she murmured. "Never took care of himself properly. I told him stress would catch up someday." I felt my jaw tighten. Stress didn't put him here. Her gaze snapped toward me. "What was that?" "Nothing," I said quickly. Letitia spoke before Vanessa could continue. "If you'll excuse me, Mrs. Miller, I need to check the night shift inventory." "Of course," Vanessa replied sweetly. "But don't wander too far, nurse. I'd hate for someone to think you're meddling." Letitia gave her a practiced smile, then slipped out of the room. Vanessa lingered by the bed for another minute, watching Ethan breathe. "You know," she said without looking at me, "I really do admire your loyalty, Claire. It must be exhausting, believing in someone who's already gone." Something in me cracked. I stood, the chair scraping softly against the tile. "He's not gone." She turned then, her expression almost pitying. Denial can be a comfort, but it doesn't change the facts. Her hand brushed the IV line with deliberate care, adjusting it slightly. Too slightly. My chest clenched. Was she... I stepped forward instinctively, but she turned toward me with that saccharine smile. "Just fixing the tube. You really should trust the professionals, dear." My hands were shaking now. "You've done enough, Vanessa." Her smile didn't fade. "Oh, I'm just getting started." And then she walked out. The instant the door closed, I darted toward the IV. I didn't know what I was looking for. Discoloration, bubbles, anything. But something about the line seemed off. The fluid had a faint, unnatural tint, barely visible in the fluorescent light. I turned to the side table, searching for gloves, anything I could use. That's when I saw it, half hidden under a folder, a small, unlabeled pill bottle. My breath caught. I reached for it, but a voice behind me froze me mid-motion. "Careful," Adrian said softly from the doorway, his phone raised again. "Wouldn't want anyone to think you're the one tampering with the IV." The camera's red light blinked in the dark, and in that moment I realized Adrian wasn't just Vanessa's accomplice. He was her weapon. I froze, my fingers inches from the pill bottle. Adrian's voice filled the room like smoke. Smooth, slow, and dangerous. The faint red blink of his phone camera glowed against the dim hospital light, capturing everything. He leaned against the doorframe, smiling as if we were sharing a private joke. "You know," he said softly. "From this angle, it almost looks like you're tampering with his IV. Not a good look, Claire." My heart thundered in my chest. I took a step back, hands raised slightly. "You shouldn't be recording in here." "Oh, but I should," he said, lifting the phone higher. "See, Vanessa told me to keep an eye on things. Said you were emotional, unstable even." His tone turned sympathetic, mockingly so. "It's understandable, of course. Losing a son can break anyone." I swallowed hard. "He's not gone," I said. "And you know exactly what she's doing." He chuckled. "You've got quite the imagination for an old woman. Maybe that's what makes this all so tragic. You think you're saving him, but in the end you'll just look guilty." I stared at him, forcing my breathing to slow. If I let him see fear, he'd win. "Why are you helping her?" I asked quietly. His grin widened. "Help? No, Claire. I'm protecting her. And myself. You think she's the only one who benefits from Ethan's little expiration?" My stomach twisted. "You're getting paid," he smirked. "Not just money. Let's just say Vanessa has a way of rewarding loyalty." Disgust burned through me, but I stayed silent. My mind raced for a way out. Letitia was somewhere nearby. If I could just get to her, she'd know what to do. Adrian stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the bed. "You know, I actually feel sorry for you," he said. "You built your whole life around that boy, and now it's slipping away. You'll be left with nothing but guilt, and maybe a prison cell, if you're not careful." Your eyes flicked to the pill bottle again. "If I could get it before he noticed." But he caught the glance. His smile hardened. "Ah, that's what you're after." He crossed the room in 2 strides and snatched the bottle, holding it up between us. "Tech evidence, is it?" "How clumsy!" I stepped forward. "You have no right." He cut me off, his voice low and venomous. "You don't understand, do you? This is Vanessa's story now. You're just a character in it. A bitter mother who couldn't accept reality." I shook my head. "You won't get away with this." He laughed quietly. "I already have." Before I could reply, a knock on the door interrupted us. Adrian's smile flickered. He slipped the bottle into his pocket and turned just as Letitia entered, clipboard in hand. "Everything all right here?" she asked, her tone sharp but measured. Adrian's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. "Just checking on Mrs. Miller's visitor privileges," he said smoothly. "There's been some confusion about the chart." Letitia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Visitor privileges don't concern you, Mr. Caldwell," he said quickly. "Administrative liaison?" Her lips twitched, unimpressed. "I'll confirm that with security." He gave her a mock bow and brushed past her, leaving the room with the scent of cologne and arrogance lingering in the air. The moment he was gone, Letitia shut the door and locked it. "What happened?" she asked. I told her everything. The camera, the threats, the pill bottle. She listened silently, her eyes darkening with every word. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "We're running out of time," she said. "They're setting you up. If that video gets out, it'll look like you tried to harm your son. We need proof, solid proof, before the morning shift." She glanced toward Ethan's bed. "There's one way." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Security's backup drives," she said. "Every camera feed in this wing is stored in a restricted server room. If we can get access to the original footage, we'll see Vanessa tampering with the IV earlier today. It'll clear you and expose her." I hesitated. "That's risky. They'll notice if we—" "They already notice everything," Letitia cut in. "The difference is, they've been watching you." The truth hit me hard. Vanessa and Adrian had flipped the script, turning me into the villain of the story. If I didn't act now, I'd lose Ethan, my freedom, and every trace of the truth. "All right," I said finally. "What do we do?" Letitia's gaze was steady, fearless. "We move fast. I'll distract security. You go to the basement, room B12. That's where the backup servers are stored. And the code." She handed me a folded note. "It'll work once. After that, they'll know someone's inside." I took the note, my pulse hammering. "And if they catch me?" Her jaw tightened. "Then we both go down. But if you don't go, Ethan dies tonight." As I slipped the code into my pocket, I realized this wasn't just about saving my son anymore. It was about surviving the story Vanessa was already writing about me. Letitia squeezed my hand and leaned close, whispering, "When I give the signal, go. Don't hesitate." Her eyes were hard with resolve. There was no room for doubt now, only motion. She left the room with the kind of brisk purpose that made everyone think she was only doing her job. She strode toward the nurse's station, and, true to plan, planted herself where the security monitors were visible. Within seconds, she was asking questions, loud enough for guards to hear, about a supposedly missing medication order for another patient. 2 guards rose and followed her, rolling their eyes but doing what she'd prompted them to do. The corridor cleared like a stage after the actors step aside. I folded the tiny slip of paper with the one-time code the way she'd shown me, and slipped it into my pocket. Every step I took toward the service elevator felt like walking through molasses. My palms were slick. The elevator smelled faintly of disinfectant and old pennies. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The button for the basement was dusty. As the doors closed, I reminded myself why I was here. Ethan's face, the way his fingers had twitched 2 nights ago. The memory sharpened everything. The utility corridor down there smelled of bleach and damp concrete. No one passed me. The hospital's map on the wall confirmed where B12 was, a heavy metal door with a keypad beside it. I wiped my sweaty hands on my skirt, smoothed my face, and keyed the digits Letitia had given me. A green light clicked. The door sighed open. The server room felt like stepping into winter. Racks of machines hummed like a sleeping animal. Blue LEDs blinked in patterns I didn't understand. Somewhere behind one bank of servers, a fan whirred louder, creating a low, steady drone that filled the small space. I felt suddenly small and exposed. My hands trembled as I found the labeled camera archive. The interface was clinical, black text on gray panels. I typed the time frame Letitia had told me. A range covering the afternoon, when Vanessa had the room alone. The first clip popped up, grainy footage of the corridor outside room 312. I clicked play. There she was, Vanessa in her cream dress, moving with practiced grace. She paused at the door, glancing around, then slipped inside. My breath hitched. I sped forward. There at the bedside, unseen by the cameras above, Vanessa reached into her purse, extracted a small pill bottle, and bent close to Ethan's V. The angle wasn't perfect, but her fingers moved with the same deliberate, careful motion I'd seen in all the recordings. She adjusted the IV bag, just for a second. Then she left, smoothing her skirt as if nothing had happened. My hands flew. I bookmarked the clip, then checked another camera. An overhead in the small supply corridor that caught Vanessa coming from the parking lot. The footage showed her laughing on her phone, a smile I now saw as cruelty. I downloaded both clips to the USB Letitia had tucked into my palm before I'd left. My fingers fumbled. The progress bar crawled. Halfway through, the screen flashed an error. Unauthorized access detected. Admin override required. A second later, a new window opened. A live feed of the server room itself, and then, impossibly, my own face on the monitor. A system log scrolled up, showing an admin account mining through the archives at the exact same timestamp I'd used. The console displayed a username I didn't recognize, a Caldwell as admin, and a note, monitoring remote access. My heart thumped so hard I thought the racks would hear it. I slammed the USB in and yanked it free. The download finished with a mocking beep. I tucked the drive into my pocket and moved toward the door. The keycard reader blinked red. I hadn't realized the room would lock behind me. The hum changed pitch. Something clicked. I fumbled for the metal handle and pulled. Stuck. My breath shortened. Someone had triggered the lockdown. On the small console beside the door, a notification pinged. A single text message from an unknown number, displayed in stark white letters. "Nice try, Claire. Don't get cute." My pulse built into a roar. The hairs on my arms rose. I put my hand to the pocket where the USB rested as if it were an anchor. Whoever sent that message knew my name. Whoever watched the admin feed knew I was here. I slammed my shoulder against the door. It held. Footsteps, firm, approaching, clanged down the utility corridor outside, not the measured steps of a security guard. Heavy, confident, purposeful. My breath fogged in the cold air as the footsteps stopped just beyond the door. Then a voice, low and amused, floated through the metal. "You picked a charming little hideout." "Claire!" Adrian's voice. My heart lurched. The download was in my pocket, but standing in the freezing server room with the door locked, I realized the real danger wasn't getting the footage. It was what Adrian already knew. Adrian's voice slid through the metal door like oil through cracks. "You should have stayed upstairs, Claire," he said lightly. "People might start to think you're the reason all this trouble started." The air in the server room felt heavier. The soft hum of the machines that had once sounded distant now filled every inch of space around me, like they were whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. I backed away from the door slowly, my fingers tightening around the USB drive in my pocket. "What do you want, Adrian?" I managed. His tone was almost friendly. "Let's call it damage control. You've got something that doesn't belong to you." I glanced at the console screen still flickering in the corner. The recording, the proof, was safe on the USB. "You mean the truth?" I said. He laughed, soft and unhurried. "Truth is just a matter of who edits the footage first." My pulse quickened. He was already erasing it. I scanned the room frantically. There had to be another exit, another way out. But all I saw were server racks, wires, and blinking lights. My reflection wavered in the metal surface of the machines. Wide eyes, pale face, trembling lips. The lock buzzed. Someone was overriding it from outside. "Think, Claire. Move." I spotted a small maintenance hatch near the back, half hidden behind a tangle of cables. I ran to it, crouched, and pulled hard. It creaked, protesting, but opened just enough to squeeze through. Cold air hit my face. A crawl space. It smelled of dust and metal. The lock on the main door clicked again, this time louder. Adrian wasn't alone anymore. I could hear faint murmurs, the scrape of another voice. "Vanessa." My blood turned to ice. "Careful," Adrian muttered to her. "She's cornered. Might get desperate." Vanessa's voice was calm, even amused. "She's already desperate. That's her problem." I slid into the narrow passage, closing the hatch as silently as I could. My knees scraped the metal floor, the sound barely audible beneath the whine of the fans. I crawled forward, following a faint light at the far end. Every breath echoed in the confined space. Their footsteps entered the server room. "Empty," Adrian said after a moment. "But she was here. Look, console still active." "Find what she took," Vanessa ordered. Her tone was colder now. "If she gets that footage out, everything falls apart." "She can't get far," he said. "Basement sealed from the main elevators." "Then check the ducts." "She's not that clever, but she's scared. Fear makes people predictable." I froze. The passage split ahead of me, left or right. I could see faint slivers of light filtering through vents. I chose left, praying it led upward. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely move quietly. Behind me, metal clanged. Adrian opening the hatch. "Found it," he said. "She's in here somewhere." Vanessa's reply was a whisper I could barely hear. "Don't kill her yet. We need to know who helped her." "Letitia." My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I moved faster, scraping my palms raw against the cold surface. Then I saw it. A small vent cover ahead, loose at one corner. I kicked it gently until it popped free. Light flooded in. I slid out into a dim storage hallway, lined with old medical equipment and stacks of file boxes. The smell of disinfectant was stronger here, mixed with something older. Dust and rust. I stood, brushing off my coat, trying to steady my breathing. The USB was still in my pocket. The proof survived, but footsteps echoed again, closer this time. I turned just in time to see a shadow stretch across the far wall. Not Adrian's. Letitia stepped out from behind a cabinet, her face pale, eyes wide. "Claire!" she hissed. "We need to move. They're on every camera in this wing. They'll corner us before we reach the elevators." "How did you find me?" I whispered. I saw the feed before they cut it, she said quickly. I've got a security badge. We can take the maintenance stairs. She grabbed my hand and pulled me along the corridor. Do you have it? I nodded. The footage is on the USB. Good. Her expression hardened. Then we still have a chance. We reached the stairwell, the echo of our footsteps bouncing between the walls. The emergency light flickered overhead, turning everything into alternating frames of light and shadow. Behind us, a metallic clang echoed, a door opening somewhere down the hall. Adrian's voice carried faintly through the darkness. Keep running, ladies, he called. You're making this more fun than it needs to be. Letitia pushed me ahead. Go! Don't stop until you reach the upper floor. But just as we reached the second landing, a low rumble filled the stairwell. The sound of doors above us locking automatically. The lights flickered again, and then went out completely, plunging everything into darkness. I froze. What's happening? Letitia cursed under her breath. They've triggered lockdown. They're hurting us. Up or down doesn't matter anymore. And then, in the pitch-black silence, a voice echoed from below. Calm, confident, and much too close. Claire, Vanessa called softly. Let's stop pretending you can win. Her voice floated through the darkness like a promise, and I realized the only way out of this hospital now wasn't up or down, but through her. The emergency lights flickered once more, then died completely. The stairwell plunged into silence and pitch-black void. My heartbeat filled the space where sound should have been. Letitia's hand tightened on mine. Stay close, she whispered. They'll use the dark against us. Somewhere below, the soft echo of footsteps, slow, deliberate, rose through the concrete stairwell. Vanessa's heels, that calm rhythm that somehow managed to sound elegant even while hunting us. Claire. Her voice floated upward, smooth and coaxing. You've made quite a mess of things tonight. Why don't you come down? We can talk about this like adults. Her tone was almost kind, but every word was laced with venom. Letitia leaned close, her breath warm against my ear. Ignore her. Keep moving. We climbed in careful silence, one step at a time. The faint red glow from the emergency exit sign barely painted the walls enough to see our hands. My palm brushed against the rough concrete, grounding me in the dark. Do you trust me? Letitia murmured. Yes, I whispered back. Good. When I say run, you run. Don't look back. A door above us creaked open. Faint light spilled down the stairwell. 2 silhouettes appeared against it. Security guards. For a second, relief flooded me. Then one of them spoke. Ma'am, please stop right there, he said, his voice stiff, rehearsed. Letitia froze. Which division are you with? She asked sharply. Private Response Unit, the man said. Mrs. Miller requested lockdown clearance. Vanessa, the other guard, raised a flashlight. Its beam cut across my face. That's her, he said quickly. She's the one trying to tamper with patient files. Letitia stepped in front of me. Don't move, she hissed. Then louder, to them. You're making a mistake. I'm a registered nurse, badge number 4573. This woman is... A metallic click cut her off. The first guard drew his baton, not a gun, but the way he held it made my stomach twist. Orders are orders, ma'am, he said. Run, Letitia whispered. I hesitated, but the look in her eyes, fierce, unwavering, left no room for argument. I turned and bolted up the stairs. Behind me came the sound of shouting, a struggle, something heavy striking metal. Letitia's voice sharp and defiant. You're not laying a hand on her. I didn't stop. I couldn't. My breath tore through my throat as I reached the top landing. A heavy door loomed ahead, marked Authorized Personnel Only. I shoved it open and stumbled into a long corridor lined with maintenance pipes. The hum of generators returned faintly through the walls. I pressed my back against the wall, chest heaving. The USB in my pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Below, the stairwell went silent again. Then, footsteps. Slow, graceful. Not Letitia's. "Running won't save you," Vanessa called softly. "You've always been too sentimental, Claire." "Too predictable." I bit my lip to keep from gasping. She was getting closer. I scanned the corridor ahead. Pipes, valves, shadows. No doors, no windows. Then, at the far end, a faint light blinking above a sign that read, "Generator access. Restricted." It wasn't an exit, but it might connect to the loading bay. I forced myself to move, every step echoing faintly on the metal floor. My hand brushed against the wall until I found the handle and pulled. The heavy steel door opened with a hiss of air. Inside, the generator room roared, a mechanical heartbeat filling every corner. The noise swallowed everything else. The massive machines glowed faintly from internal LEDs, casting shifting shadows that danced across the walls. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me. For the first time since the blackout, I could breathe again. But only for a moment. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A single vibration. "Unknown number again." A message. "You shouldn't have left her." My stomach dropped. I opened it. A photo loaded slowly on the screen. Grainy, taken just seconds ago. It showed the stairwell. Letitia, on the floor, motionless. The phone slipped from my hands, clattering against the metal floor. My vision blurred. She'd bought me time. She'd kept her promise. I clenched my jaw, wiping my eyes. Vanessa thought fear would break me. She was wrong. I looked up at the security camera mounted near the ceiling, its red light still blinking faintly. If she was watching, I wanted her to see. "You started this," I whispered, voice steady despite the tears. "But I'm the one who's going to finish it." I grabbed a nearby toolbox and yanked out a wrench. Somewhere in this maze of wires and power conduits, there had to be a way to reboot the system, to bring the lights back on and the doors back under control. As I pried open the control panel, sparks flickered and the hum of the machines deepened. For the first time in hours, I felt something that almost resembled power. Then, faintly, through the din, I heard it. Vanessa's voice again, carried through the intercom this time. "Oh, Claire," she said sweetly. "I'm afraid you just triggered something you shouldn't have." The generator lights flared white, then cut out completely. The entire hospital plunged into darkness again. But this time, the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. For a few agonizing seconds, I stood in total darkness. The generator's hum had vanished, swallowed by a silence so deep I could hear the frantic beat of my own heart. The air was thick, almost alive. I could smell the faint tang of ozone and burning metal from the blown fuse box. Vanessa's voice echoed faintly through the static of the overhead speakers. "Oh, Claire, what did you do?" Her tone was playful, teasing, but underneath it was something else. Calm certainty. She had planned for this. Every step I took was leading me deeper into her maze. I fumbled for my phone, its screen now the only source of light. The reflection of my trembling face looked ghostly in the cracked glass. The photo of Letitia's still form was still on the screen. I swallowed hard and pushed it away. I couldn't think about that now. Focus. Find a way out. Get the footage out. The generator room was larger than I'd realized. My light cut through layers of machinery and pipes, glinting off bolts and warning labels. Somewhere above, the emergency ventilation kicked in. A low mechanical sigh that carried faint voices from other floors. "Find her." Adrian's voice, muffled but close. He was still here. I turned sharply toward the sound, pressing myself against the cold wall. My phone buzzed again. Another message. "Running out of places to hide, aren't you?" He was watching me. Somehow, even without power, he had eyes in the dark. I scanned the room again, then noticed something. A faint rectangle of dim light near the floor, behind one of the generator stacks. A vent cover. It looked wide enough for me to crawl through. My heart pounded as I crouched and pried it open. The metal groaned softly, echoing far louder than I wanted. I froze. Footsteps above. Heavy, deliberate. "Claire!" Adrian's voice called softly. "I've got to hand it to you. You've got more fight in you than I expected. Vanessa said you'd fold the moment things got messy." I crawled into the vent, moving quickly. The narrow passage smelled like dust and cold air. My phone light flickered across the metal walls as I pulled myself forward. Each breath was shallow, quick, loud, in the confined space. Adrian's footsteps entered the generator room. "You really think that video matters?" he said. His voice bounced off the metal surfaces. "The second you show it to anyone, Vanessa will have 3 other clips proving you planted those pills yourself." "She's very thorough," I gritted my teeth. "You two are monsters," he chuckled. "No, Claire. We're survivors. You should understand that. You raised a son, right? Did what you had to do to make sure he had everything?" I said nothing, just kept moving. The vent curved upward, leading toward another grate. Light flickered beyond it. Faint red emergency backup power. Adrian's tone darkened. "If you come out now, maybe Vanessa will let you see him before it's over." I stopped crawling. My throat tightened. "She's touching him again?" "Oh, yes," he said softly. "Right now, in fact. She's saying goodbye." Rage exploded through my veins. I shoved forward, slamming against the grate until it cracked loose. I tumbled out into a maintenance corridor, scraping my hands and knees against the floor. My phone light flared wildly, revealing the faint red glow of backup power along the walls. I pushed myself up and ran. Every muscle screamed. Every step echoed too loud. But I didn't care. I had to reach Ethan before she did. The corridor twisted like a labyrinth, leading to a door marked Ward Access, Level 3. I slammed my palm against the panel. Locked. I tried the override key Letitia had given me earlier, the same one that had worked on the basement door. To my shock, the panel beeped green. The door slid open with a hiss. The hallway beyond was silent except for the faint beeping of monitors in distant rooms. Emergency lighting painted everything in crimson shadows. Room 312. My feet moved before my mind caught up. The number burned in my brain like a brand. When I reached the doorway, I hesitated. The door was half open. I pushed gently, the hinges creaking. The room was dim. Ethan lay motionless, his chest rising faintly. For one terrifying second, I thought Vanessa wasn't there. Then, from the corner, she stepped into view. Calm, composed, her hair perfectly arranged, her lips curled into that infuriating, deliberate smile. She was holding the IV line in one hand. "Careful," she said softly. "You might wake him." I froze, fury and terror colliding in my chest. "What are you doing?" "Fixing what you broke," she replied simply. "He was supposed to drift away peacefully hours ago. But you," she tilted her head, "you just had to play the hero." I stepped forward. "You'll never get away with this," she smiled wider. "Claire, look around you. Who do you think they'll believe? The grieving wife or the hysterical mother who broke into restricted areas and tampered with hospital systems?" My fists clenched. "You're sick." "No," she said softly. "I'm free." She lifted the syringe from the tray beside her, filled with a clear liquid that shimmered faintly under the red lights. "That's enough," I said, stepping closer. Her eyes glinted. "Yes, it is." Vanessa's hand hovered over the syringe, and as the first drop fell into the IV line, I realized I might have only seconds left to save my son's life. Part 13. The world narrowed to the faint shimmer of liquid inside that syringe. Vanessa's fingers were steady, almost graceful as she held it, like a pianist about to strike her first note. The sound of my own heartbeat drowned out everything else. "Step away from him," I said, my voice cracking despite my effort to stay calm. She didn't move. "You really don't understand how exhausting this has been, do you?" she said softly. "Ethan was never going to let go. He clung to hope, to you, to every little lie that made him feel safe. "But I'm tired of waiting." "You call that love?" I spat. She smiled faintly. "I call it mercy." I lunged. The syringe slipped from her hand and clattered onto the tile. She stumbled back, her calm mask breaking for the first time. I grabbed the IV line, tearing it from Ethan's arm. The monitor screamed in protest as alarms blared through the room. Vanessa's expression hardened. "You stupid old woman!" She lunged for the syringe, but I kicked it across the floor. It slid under a cabinet, vanishing into the shadows. "You don't get to decide when his life ends," I said, standing between her and the bed. Her breathing quickened. "You think this changes anything? They already think you've lost your mind. Adrian has the footage. You look desperate, violent. Exactly what I told them you'd become." "You poisoned him," I shot back. "We have proof." She laughed, low, mocking. "Proof? The USB you think is safe in your pocket? You really believe it hasn't been wiped by now?" My hand instinctively went to my coat. I felt the small drive, cold and solid. "You're lying." Her smile widened. "Am I?" The door behind her opened suddenly. Adrian filled the doorway, panting slightly, one hand gripping the frame. His hair was damp with sweat, his eyes glinting in the red emergency light. "Enough," he said. "We're done playing games." Vanessa turned toward him sharply. "What took you so long?" He ignored her, his gaze locked on me instead. "Give me the drive, Claire." I backed up, keeping Ethan's bed between us. "You'll have to take it," Adrian sighed, stepping closer. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. No one needs to get hurt." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. No one needs to get hurt? After everything they'd done? Behind him, alarms continued to blare. Somewhere in the hallway, voices shouted. Nurses, maybe security. The sound seemed distant, like it belonged to another world. Vanessa moved first. She grabbed a metal tray from the counter and hurled it toward me. It crashed into the floor, scattering instruments. Adrian lunged in the same instant, his hand outstretched toward my coat. I twisted, my back slamming against the wall. "Stop!" I screamed, but no one did. We struggled, a tangle of limbs and desperation. His grip was iron. I clawed at his wrist, trying to wrench free, but he was stronger. The USB slipped from my pocket and fell between us, bouncing once before skidding under the bed. Adrian froze for half a second, his eyes darting to where it landed. That hesitation was all I needed. I drove my elbow into his ribs as hard as I could. He grunted, staggering back. Vanessa moved toward the bed, crouching low. "Got it," she said triumphantly. But before she could stand, I grabbed her wrist and slammed her hand against the bed rail. The USB fell again, clattering across the tile. It slid toward the open doorway, just as another pair of shoes appeared in the hall. I turned and nearly sobbed with relief. "Security! Step back!" A guard pushed through the doorway, weapon drawn. Behind him, a second one followed, his flashlight cutting through the chaos. Adrian's composure shattered. "Wait, it's not what it looks like." But Vanessa wasn't listening anymore. Her calm was gone, replaced by pure panic. She darted toward the syringe under the cabinet, reaching for it with trembling fingers. The guard saw her movement and shouted, "Stop!" She hesitated just long enough for me to act. I grabbed her by the collar and yanked her backward. The syringe flew from her hand, spinning once before smashing against the floor. The clear liquid spread like spilled glass across the tiles. The guard seized Adrian, twisting his arms behind him. The other approached Vanessa, ordering her to stay down. For the first time in hours, I exhaled. My knees nearly gave out. It was over. At least that's what I wanted to believe. The USB still lay near the door. I bent to pick it up. But before my fingers touched it, the lights flickered on. And in the brief second of illumination, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The second guard, the one holding Vanessa, wasn't wearing a hospital badge. His name tag was blank. When he met my eyes, he smiled. And I realized too late that the lockdown wasn't over. It was only shifting into the next phase. The moment the lights came back, the illusion of safety shattered. The man holding Vanessa wasn't security. His uniform was close, but not identical. No hospital crest, no ID badge, no radio. Just the look of someone who knew exactly how to blend in. He smiled when our eyes met. It wasn't the smile of a rescuer. It was calculated, deliberate, like a hunter, acknowledging new prey. "Everything's under control," he said smoothly. His voice was calm, low, but something about the way he spoke made the hairs on my arms rise. "Everyone, stay calm." Adrian stopped struggling in the first guard's grip. His expression changed instantly. Relief, maybe recognition. "You took your time," he muttered. My stomach dropped. He knows him. Vanessa, still kneeling on the floor, froze. For the first time, she looked uncertain. "I told you not to come in here," she hissed. The fake guard shrugged. "Your husband said it was urgent." Her eyes widened. Then she stopped, understanding flickering in her gaze. It wasn't Ethan he meant. It was Adrian. I took a slow step backward toward Ethan's bed, shielding him instinctively. The real guard, the only one I trusted, was still pinning Adrian's arms. He glanced between us, confusion creasing his brow. "Who are you?" he demanded, nodding toward the imposter. The man with no badge smiled again. "Back up." And then, in one swift motion, he pulled a small device from his pocket, a black cylinder, no larger than a pen. He clicked it once. The lights flickered violently, and the heart monitor beside Ethan's bed let out a static hiss, an electromagnetic pulse, a portable one. The real guard stumbled back, clutching his earpiece as it screeched. "What the hell?" Adrian twisted free, shoving him hard into the counter. The man fell with a thud. "Adrian!" Vanessa shouted, grabbing his arm. "Stop, we're exposed." But Adrian wasn't listening. His calm had cracked into something darker, wilder. "She ruined everything," he said, glaring at me. "Do you have any idea what we were risking for this? For him?" He pointed at Ethan. "He was supposed to die clean, quiet. No investigation, no scandal. But you couldn't just let go." I stared at him, voice trembling but steady. "He's my son." "Not for much longer," he snapped. He lunged toward the bed. Instinct took over. I grabbed the IV pole and swung it. It struck his shoulder with a hollow clang. He stumbled back, cursing. Vanessa shrieked and darted for the doorway. But the fake guard blocked her path. "Leaving so soon?" he asked softly. For the first time, she looked afraid. "You weren't supposed to interfere!" He smirked. "Orders changed." The way he said it made my blood run cold. Adrian recovered, breathing hard, rage twisting his face. He reached for me again, but a loud voice barked from the hall. "Freeze! Drop it!" More footsteps thundered in. The real security team this time. 2 officers in proper uniforms. One raised a flashlight, the other his taser. "Hands where I can see them." The fake guard moved fast. Too fast. He pulled something from his belt, a sleek black pistol that caught the light. The sight of it froze everyone in place. "Drop it!" one officer shouted again. He didn't. Instead, he turned his weapon toward Vanessa. "Looks like our little arrangement's over," he said. Her eyes went wide. "Wait! No!" But before he could fire, Adrian lunged at him from the side, shouting, "You don't get to end this." The gun went off, the sound deafening in the enclosed room. Screams. Chaos. The smell of gunpowder burned my throat. Vanessa crumpled beside the bed, her hands pressed to her stomach. Adrian tackled the fake guard, both of them crashing into the medical equipment. The heart monitor exploded in sparks. Security swarmed them, shouting commands, tasers crackling. In the chaos, I crawled toward Vanessa. She was breathing shallowly, her eyes glassy but focused on me. "Claire," she whispered, blood staining her lips. I hesitated, torn between horror and disbelief. Her hand twitched weakly toward the pocket of her coat. "Take it." I reached in and pulled out a folded envelope, slick with blood. Inside was a small card with a symbol I didn't recognize. A circle with intersecting lines, stamped in silver. Beneath it, one word. Haven. Her lips moved again, barely audible. "They'll come for it." Her hand fell limp. I looked up just as the fake guard was dragged out, kicking and snarling, his gun knocked from his grip. Adrian was on his knees, cuffed, his face pale with fury. The room reeked of burned wires and blood. Ethan's monitor was still dead. No sound, no heartbeat. For one unbearable second, I thought I was too late. Then, faintly, a single beep. Weak, but there. He was alive. I reached for his hand, tears streaming down my face. "Hold on, sweetheart. Please hold on." A shadow fell over me. Adrian, half smiling despite the cuffs, whispered hoarsely, "You think this ends here? Haven's bigger than all of us." As they dragged him away, I looked down at the blood-stained card in my hand and realized Vanessa and Adrian were just the beginning. The word on the card, Haven, glimmered under the harsh white light of the operating lamps now flickering back to life. I couldn't tear my eyes from it. The silver symbol, 2 interlocking circles crossed by a line, felt familiar, though I couldn't place where I'd seen it before. Somewhere deep in my memory, it stirred something cold. Paramedics rushed into the room, voices cutting through the fog. "We've got a pulse. Prep for transfer!" They surrounded Ethan's bed, moving with mechanical precision. I stepped back, my knees weak, my heart struggling to match the rhythm of their urgency. A hand touched my shoulder. One of the officers, the real ones, spoke softly. "Ma'am, you need to come with us. You've sustained minor injuries, and we need your statement." I nodded numb, clutching the blood-stained card tightly in my hand. As they led me out into the corridor, chaos rippled in every direction. Medical staff, flashing lights, the sharp scent of disinfectant mixed with gunpowder. Adrian was already being escorted away in restraints, shouting over his shoulder, "You can't stop it, Claire! You have no idea what you've stepped into." I wanted to shout back, to demand answers, but my throat wouldn't work. The only sound that escaped was the shallow rasp of my breath. Vanessa's body was wheeled past me, covered with a white sheet. The sight sent a chill through me. Not of grief, but of disbelief. For all her cruelty, I'd never truly believed she'd die here, like this. But her words echoed still. They'll come for it. I looked down at the card again, the silver emblem glinting faintly under the hall light. Haven. Whatever it was, Vanessa had feared it more than death. They led me to an empty consultation room. A nurse cleaned the scrape on my arm while the officer filled out his report. "You're lucky to be alive, ma'am," he said, glancing up at me. That man, Adrian, he had files on multiple patients. "Not just your son. Looks like this goes deeper than we thought." I frowned. "What kind of files?" He shook his head. "Can't say. The investigators are already pulling everything from his devices. You'll need to wait until the detectives brief you." I nodded absently, but my attention was fixed on my phone. It buzzed once, the screen lighting up with a new message from an unknown number. "Unknown. You have something that belongs to us." My grip tightened. My thumb hovered over the reply button. Then another message came. Seconds later. "Unknown. Haven protects its own. You should leave before it's too late." My chest tightened. I glanced toward the officer. "Can I use your phone line?" He nodded, distracted. I dialed the number Letitia had given me earlier. A secure contact for emergencies. Part of the hospital's internal security team. The line rang 3 times before a man's voice answered. "This is Captain Hayes," he said. "Captain, this is Claire." I hesitated. "I was told to contact this number if there was an emergency involving the Miller case." There was silence on the other end for a long moment. When he spoke again, his tone was quieter. "Where did you get that card?" My pulse jumped. "You know about it?" Another pause. "Leave the hospital, Mrs. Miller. Right now. And whatever you do, don't hand that card to anyone claiming to be from the police. Not yet." "Why?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Because Haven isn't a place. It's a network. And some of its members are already inside that building." The line went dead. My mouth went dry. I looked around the room. The nurse had stepped out. The officer was gone too. No sound, no footsteps. just gone. The air felt suddenly heavier. A soft click behind me. The consultation room door swung shut on its own. I turned slowly. A woman I'd never seen before stood in the corner, dressed in civilian clothes but wearing a hospital visitor's badge. Her hair was tied neatly, her eyes calm and cold. "Mrs. Miller," she said softly, "you have something that belongs to us." I backed up, my hand slipping the card into my coat pocket. "Who are you?" She smiled faintly. "You already know." The lights in the room flickered again. For a moment, her reflection in the glass door shimmered, and behind her, I thought I saw others. Shadows, still and waiting. "You shouldn't have taken the card," she continued. "Vanessa wasn't supposed to give it to you. Now we all have a problem." My throat went dry. "If you're part of Haven—" She raised a finger to her lips, silencing me. "Names mean nothing here. What matters is that you walk out of this hospital alive." Her voice was soft, but there was no mercy in it. Outside, I heard a stretcher rolling past, the sound of wheels over tile, and then, faintly, the familiar tone of Ethan's heart monitor from down the hall. Still beating, I held on to that sound like a lifeline. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "We want what's ours. Give us the card, Claire, and maybe you'll get to keep what's left of your family." Her hand extended slowly, palm open, and I realized for the first time, Vanessa's death hadn't ended the nightmare. It had just handed me the key to a darker one. The woman's hand remained outstretched, palm steady, as if she already knew I'd give in. Her calmness frightened me more than Adrian's rage or Vanessa's cruelty ever had. There was no threat in her tone, no weapon in sight. Just quiet certainty, the kind that came from power no one dared question. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, clutching my coat tighter. Her expression didn't change. "The card, Mrs. Miller, Haven's mark. You shouldn't have it." "I found it on Vanessa," I said quickly. She gave it to me before she died." The woman tilted her head, her gaze sharp. "Then she broke the code." "The code?" She took a slow step forward, her heels silent on the tile. "Every member swears loyalty. To betray Haven means erasure. The moment that card touched your hand, you became part of her mistake." My pulse quickened. "I don't want any part of it." "Then give it back." Her voice dropped lower, each word heavy with control. "Hand it to me now, and you walk out of here free." I could feel the weight of the card in my pocket, a small, cold rectangle of danger. Something deep inside me screamed not to trust her. "I can't," I whispered. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face. "Then you don't understand what you've done." The room felt smaller, the air thicker. I could hear distant voices again, officers shouting orders, the hum of generators restarting, the chaotic heartbeat of a hospital trying to return to normal. But here in this room, everything was still. "Who are you really?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "I was like you once, curious, angry. I thought I could expose them." She looked away, almost wistful. "But Haven doesn't fall apart that easily. It adapts. What is it?" I asked, my voice shaking. "A corporation? A cult?" She gave a small, almost pitying laugh. "Both, in a way. A network of influence. Doctors, investors, law enforcement, politicians. People who fix things quietly. For the right price." I swallowed hard. "And Adrian, Vanessa, they worked for them?" "They were part of a cell," she said. "Small piece of a very large system. When one piece breaks, the rest closes ranks." Her tone shifted, colder now. "And that card you're hiding? It's not just an identification. It's a key. It gives access to Haven's archive." I froze. "Archive?" She nodded slowly. "Every secret they've ever buried. Every file, every death they covered up. The card unlocks it all. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Vanessa wanted me to have it. Then she wanted Haven destroyed. For the first time, her mask slipped slightly, and I saw fear beneath the calm exterior. That's why you need to give it to me, Claire. They already know you have it. You won't make it out of this city if you keep it." I took a small step back, my voice barely audible. "And if I hand it over?" She hesitated, then said softly, "You disappear quietly. No one follows. No one hurts your son." At the mention of Ethan, something inside me hardened. "You're threatening a child." Her eyes softened almost imperceptibly. "No, Mrs. Miller, I'm giving you a choice." Before I could respond, the door burst open. 2 hospital security officers entered, followed by Captain Hayes, the man who'd spoken to me on the phone. He was tall, stern, his face drawn tight with urgency. "Step away from her," he barked at the woman. She turned calmly, folding her hands in front of her. "Captain Hayes, still playing hero, I see." His expression didn't change. "You don't belong here." She smiled faintly. "Neither do you." The tension between them was electric. Clearly they knew each other. Hayes motioned to the guards. "Escort her out." They stepped forward, but before they could grab her, she moved. Quick, efficient, almost graceful. She reached into her sleeve, tapped a small device on her wrist, and the lights in the room flickered violently. For half a second, everything went white. When my vision cleared, she was gone. Damn it! Hayes cursed, slamming his hand against the wall. I blinked, still trying to process what I'd seen. Who was she? He looked at me grimly. "A recruiter. One of Haven's cleaners. If she made contact, they'll be coming in force next." My heart sank. "What do they want?" He met my eyes. "You already know. The card." "I can't give it to them," I said. "Not after what they've done." "Then we have to move now," he said firmly. "There's a safe location outside the city. If we can get you there before they trace your signal, you might have a chance." I hesitated, glancing toward the corridor. "My son, Ethan, he's still here." Hayes shook his head. "We'll get him out too. But you need to trust me. Trust!" The word felt impossible. But I looked into his eyes and saw something I hadn't seen in anyone from this nightmare. Resolve, not manipulation. "Okay," I whispered. "But if they're coming, we need to hurry," he nodded. "Already ahead of you." Outside the room, alarms began to sound again. Not hospital ones this time. Lower, heavier, more deliberate. Hayes' jaw tightened. "They're here." As the corridor lights turned red and the hospital doors sealed shut once more, I realized Haven wasn't sending a message this time. They were sending an army. Part 17. The hospital lights bled crimson, bathing every surface in a sinister glow. The sirens weren't just warnings now. They were signals. Haven's men were here. Captain Hayes grabbed my arm firmly, steering me toward the nearest elevator bank. "We can't take the main exits," he said. "They've got eyes on every floor. Follow me and don't look back." "What about Ethan?" I demanded, my heart pounding. "He's being moved by my team," Hayes said. "They'll meet us at the extraction point. We just need to get to the West Wing." The hallway stretched endlessly, lined with glass rooms flickering with emergency lights. Inside some, nurses huddled around patients, unaware of the storm closing in. Others were empty, dark, sterile, and silent. A loud bang echoed somewhere below. Metal hitting metal. The sound of boots followed. "They're already inside," Hayes muttered, drawing his gun. "Keep your head down." We moved fast, weaving through corridors and maintenance doors. My breath came out in ragged bursts. The air smelled of chemicals and fear. Every flicker of shadow felt like a threat. At the next junction, Hayes paused, pressing his back against the wall. "Wait." Through the narrow glass window ahead, I could see them. 3 men in dark tactical gear, moving in perfect formation. No hospital insignia, no identification. One carried a scanner, sweeping it slowly across doors as they passed. "They're tracking heat signatures," Hayes whispered. "Stay still." We waited. My pulse hammered in my ears. The scanner's red beam moved across the glass where we hid. For a second it lingered, then slid away. The men turned the corner and disappeared. Hayes exhaled. "Let's move." We slipped into a side hallway. It led to a stairwell marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Hayes punched a code into the keypad. The lock clicked and we slipped inside. The stairwell was dim, the walls sweating with condensation. "Down 2 floors," he said. "There's a service tunnel that connects to the parking sub-level." As we descended, I whispered, "Who are you really, Captain? You said you work for the hospital, but that woman knew you." He didn't answer right away. The sound of our footsteps echoed hollowly off the concrete. Finally, he said, "I used to work for them." My blood ran cold. "For Haven?" He nodded once. "A long time ago, before I knew what they were doing. I thought it was a covert medical initiative, funding research, saving lives. Then I started seeing the names disappear. Whistleblowers, patients, families." I swallowed hard. "And you left?" He gave a grim smile. "No one really leaves Haven. You just run until they stop looking." A thud echoed above us. Something heavy dropped onto the stairwell landing. Hayes froze. "Go," he said quietly. "Keep moving." I hesitated. "What was that? Go," he barked. I ran. The sound of boots followed. Multiple pairs. I glanced back and saw figures descending from above, their visors reflecting the red light. Hayes turned, firing upward. The muzzle flash lit the stairwell like lightning. "Move, Claire." I reached the bottom door, shoving it open into the maintenance tunnel. Cold air rushed out, smelling of oil and rust. Hayes backed in after me, slamming the door shut and throwing a metal bar across the handle. "We've got a few minutes at best," he said, panting. The tunnel stretched out ahead, narrow, low-ceilinged, lined with pipes. Faint emergency lights blinked at intervals, leading toward the far end. Somewhere down there, a faint humming sound vibrated through the walls. Hayes grabbed his radio. "Unit Delta confirms status on Milliboy. Static." Then, "Target secured. Heading to bay level now." Relief surged through me. "Ethan safe?" "For now," Hayes said. "But if they intercept that transport—" He didn't finish. We started running again. My legs burned, but adrenaline kept me going. I glanced down at my coat pocket where the card still rested. Its edges felt warm now, almost pulsing. "Why do they want it so badly?" I asked. Hayes didn't look back. "Because Haven's archive isn't just information. It's leverage. They control people through secrets. Criminal records, debts, blackmail. If that card unlocks it, you're holding a loaded gun pointed at every powerful person in this city." I slowed slightly, the weight of his words sinking in. "Then we can expose them," he glanced at me sharply. "If we live long enough." We reached the end of the tunnel. A heavy blast door loomed ahead with a biometric panel. Hayes pressed his hand against it. The scanner beeped once, then blinked red. "Access denied." He cursed under his breath and tried again. "They've locked us out." Behind us, the sound of boots echoed closer. Dozens this time. Voices murmured through radios. "They found us," I whispered. Hayes pulled a small black device from his pocket. A charge. "Back up. What are you doing?" "Buying us time." He pressed the detonator. The explosion tore through the tunnel entrance with a deafening roar, the shockwave knocking me to my knees. Smoke and dust filled the air. When it cleared, Hayes was already pulling me up. "We need another exit. Come on." We turned toward a narrow maintenance shaft to the right, barely wide enough to crawl through. Hayes went first, pushing debris aside. Then, from the darkness ahead, a faint voice echoed through a small speaker, distorted but unmistakable. "Running again, Captain." Hayes froze. The voice chuckled softly. "You should have stayed gone. Now we have both of you." The lights in the tunnel flickered once, revealing a camera lens watching us from the ceiling. And I realized Haven hadn't been chasing us at all. They'd been herding us. Part 18. The camera's red light blinked steadily above us, unblinking, mechanical. Like an eye that had been watching all along. Hayes stared at it, jaw tight. "They've had visual on us since the stairwell," he muttered. That's how they knew every turn we took. My stomach twisted. Then this tunnel. This was never an escape route. He gave a grim nod. No, it's a funnel. Before I could respond, the speaker crackled again. The same voice as before, smooth, steady, laced with mockery. You're predictable, Captain. Always trying to save what can't be saved. Hayes raised his gun toward the speaker. Show yourself, Cowell. The voice laughed. You still think I'm down here? Oh, Hayes. Haven doesn't come to you anymore. It draws you in. A low hum filled the tunnel. The lights overhead dimmed to a dull crimson. A second later, a mechanical hiss echoed behind us. The blast door we'd blown half open was sealing itself. We were trapped, Hayes cursed, slamming his hand against the wall. Damn it! I gripped his arm. What do we do? He scanned the tunnel, eyes sharp, calculating. There's a junction up ahead. If we can reach the maintenance lift, it might still have manual controls. We ran. The narrow shaft forced us into single file, the air thick with dust. Pipes rattled above, releasing bursts of steam. My lungs burned. But fear drove my body faster than logic could restrain it. The floor beneath us vibrated. From somewhere below came a metallic rumble, like gears shifting. Hayes stopped abruptly. They're locking down the sub-level. They'll crush this tunnel. How do we stop it? He pointed toward a panel half buried in debris. If we override that power conduit, it might stall the system long enough to reach the lift. I knelt beside it, my hands trembling as I pried the cover open. Sparks flickered. Tell me what to do. He crouched beside me, his movements precise. Pull the green and black wires together. Just don't touch the copper. I followed his instructions. The moment the wires met, the floor shook violently, the hum intensifying into a roar. Then, as suddenly as it began, the lights flickered back to white. Hayes exhaled. Good work. Let's move. We sprinted toward the junction. The tunnel widened slightly, revealing a rusted service lift cage. Hayes forced the gate open, motioning me inside. Go! He hit the manual crank. The lift shuddered, rising painfully slow. I gripped the railing as the tunnel below disappeared into shadow. The voice returned, softer now, closer. You can't run forever, Claire. Haven isn't after revenge. It's after restoration. My breath hitched. Restoration? Yes, the voice said. You disrupted something delicate. Your son was part of a program that could have saved thousands. Instead, you exposed it, Hayes shouted back. You call human experimentation salvation? Silence. Then the voice replied. Calm and cold. You call it that when it works. The lift rattled to a stop on an upper platform. Hayes pried the gate open, and we stumbled out into what looked like a forgotten storage bay. Rows of covered equipment filled the space. Old medical pods, surgical tables, and file cabinets coated in dust. Faint fluorescent lights flickered overhead, barely enough to see. Hayes scanned the area with his flashlight. This must have been one of their early labs, he murmured, before they moved everything off-site. I brushed dust off one of the metal pods. Through the small window, I saw faint outlines, wires, restraints, and something else that made my stomach lurch. A name tag, faded but still legible. E. Miller Me Knees went weak. That's my son's name, Hayes frowned, stepping closer. This can't be right. These files are years old. He wasn't even sick until last year, I said, my voice breaking. The implication hit both of us at the same time. They targeted him, Hayes said quietly. This wasn't random. I opened another pod. Another name, another file number. Different patients, different ages. But each one tagged with a small silver emblem, identical to the one on Vanessa's card. Haven had been experimenting here long before Ethan ever got sick. I felt my stomach twist. How many? Hayes shook his head, scanning the rows. Hundreds, maybe more. A metallic clang echoed from behind one of the shelves. We both froze. Hayes lifted his gun. Stay back! A shadow moved, a figure stepping out from behind the rack. A tall man, face hidden beneath a hood. his posture unnervingly calm. "I told you," the voice from the speaker said again. Only this time it wasn't through the intercom. It was coming from him. Hayes aimed his weapon. "Cowell," the man smiled faintly. "You still remember my name? I'm flattered." He stepped closer, hands raised. "Let's end this before more blood is spilled. Hand over the card, Claire. It doesn't belong to you." I met his gaze. "Vanessa died for this. Letitia died for it. I'm not giving it back." He sighed softly, like a teacher disappointed in a stubborn student. "Then I'm afraid Haven will take it another way." Behind him, faint footsteps echoed, more figures emerging from the shadows, surrounding the room like a tightening circle. Hayes stepped in front of me. "You'll have to go through me first." Cowell's smile didn't waver. "We planned to." He snapped his fingers. The floor beneath us shifted with a low grinding sound. Panels retracted, revealing a gaping black shaft where solid ground had been seconds before. Hayes grabbed my arm, pulling me back just as the floor gave way. But the edge cracked under us. We fell. The world vanished into darkness and metal, and as we plummeted, I heard Cowell's voice echo through the abyss. Calm, steady and final. "Welcome home, Mrs. Miller." The fall felt endless, like the air itself refused to catch us. My scream was swallowed by the roar of metal and wind. Hayes twisted mid-air, wrapping one arm around me and the other reaching for anything to grab. At the last second, he caught a support beam jutting from the wall. The impact nearly tore my shoulder from its socket. We swung violently before crashing into a grated platform. The sound of shattering glass echoed into the dark. I lay there, gasping, lungs burning, disoriented by the flickering lights below us. Hayes groaned, pulling himself upright. "You okay?" I nodded weakly. "I think so." We were deep, at least 4 or 5 stories below the last floor. The shaft above glowed faintly red, and somewhere high above, Cowell's shadow moved across the opening like a spider retreating to its web. Hayes looked around. We're in the substructure. The air was colder down here, thick with the scent of oil, rust, and decay. Pipes crisscrossed above us like veins. In the dim light, I saw faint markings on the walls, numbers, arrows, symbols, and a faded logo. Haven Research, Restricted Zone C. "This place wasn't built for patience," Hayes muttered. "It was built for control." We moved cautiously down a narrow catwalk that led deeper into the structure. The sound of dripping water echoed around us, rhythmic and steady. At the end of the walkway, an automated door hissed open. No code, no key. It had been waiting. "Don't go in," I whispered. Hayes exhaled. "We don't have another choice." He stepped through first, gun drawn. I followed, every muscle tense. The corridor beyond was sterile and white, lit by cold, clinical light panels. It looked brand new, untouched by dust or time. The hum of electricity filled the air again, faint but growing stronger. Rows of glass pods lined the hallway, each one containing something suspended in pale blue fluid. I approached one slowly, my reflection merging with the silhouette inside. A small body floated within, motionless, tubes running from its arms and chest. My stomach turned. A child. Hayes moved to another pod, his expression hardening. "These aren't just experiments. They're clones." My heart stuttered. "Clones?" He nodded grimly. "Haven's been using genetic material from patients to create replicates, test subjects that don't technically exist on paper." The horror hit me like a wave. "Then Ethan was part of their trial." Hayes finished softly. "But Vanessa must have interfered. Maybe she wanted out. Maybe she tried to save him." I felt dizzy, gripping the edge of the nearest pod for balance. She said she wanted mercy. Maybe she was trying to stop this. A screen flickered to life at the end of the corridor. Cowell's face appeared, half-shadowed, eyes calm. "I told you, Claire," he said, voice echoing through hidden speakers. "You're standing in the future. These children, These constructs. They're perfection born from chaos. Ethan was the first success. I shook my head, trembling. You're lying. Am I? Look closer. The glass nearest me shifted from fogged to clear. The boy inside looked identical. Same freckles. Same scar above the eyebrow. Same face. It was Ethan. Or rather, something that looked exactly like him. My knees buckled. No, that's not possible. Cowell smiled faintly on the screen. You wanted to save him, Claire. You already did. The body upstairs is just a vessel. But the consciousness, the part that matters, is right here preserved. Hayes raised his gun, fury flashing in his eyes. You twisted monster. Cowell ignored him. This was never about death. It was about continuation. You thought you were saving your son. But Haven already did that for you. I backed away, shaking my head. He's alive. My son is alive. You can't take that from me. Oh, he's alive, Cowell said softly. Just not the way you think. A low mechanical hum filled the corridor. The pods around us began to stir. Fluid drained slowly from their chambers. The lights inside glowing brighter. One by one, the children's eyes opened. Every single one of them looked exactly like Ethan. Dozens of them. Hayes grabbed my wrist. We're leaving, now. He pulled me toward the exit, but the door behind us slammed shut. A locking mechanism clanked into place, followed by a hiss of venting gas. Cowell's voice was calm, methodical. You wanted to know the truth, Mrs. Miller. Now you'll witness it. The air thickened. My vision blurred as the gas crept lower, curling around our legs like smoke. Hayes covered his mouth with his sleeve, shouting, Claire, stay low! I dropped to my knees, coughing violently. The glass pods hissed open, one after another, spilling cold vapor into the corridor. The children stepped out barefoot, silent, moving with eerie precision. Their eyes, all the same shade of gray-blue, fixed on me. One of them tilted his head, exactly the way Ethan used to when confused. Mom, he said softly. The word shattered what little was left of my control. I reached out instinctively, tears burning my eyes. Hayes pulled me back. That's not him! Cowell's voice echoed one final time, calm as ever. Welcome to Haven, Claire. You're part of the experiment now. The lights dimmed. The clones stepped closer. And as one reached out its hand toward me, I realized the truth, that Haven hadn't just replicated my son. It had replicated me. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. The faces staring back at me weren't strangers. They were reflections, dozens of children who looked like Ethan, and behind them, half-lit figures stepping out of the shadows. Each one carried a trace of my own features. My eyes, my jawline, my terror. Hayes fired at the nearest control panel. Sparks rained down, briefly lighting the corridor in white. Move, he shouted. We ran through the haze, our footsteps splashing through puddles of coolant. One of the pods collapsed, glass shattering across the floor. A tiny voice followed us, soft and confused. Mom, why are you scared? I almost stopped, almost turned back. But Hayes pulled me onward. Don't listen, he said. They're mimics. Conditioned responses. Behind us, alarms wailed. The whole facility began to pulse like a living thing. Doors slammed shut, locks engaging in a chain reaction. Where does this end? I gasped. Hayes glanced at the map glowing faintly on the wall. There's a central core. If we can reach it, we can fry their systems. And kill them? His jaw tightened. Shut them down. All of them. We reached a large circular chamber. The mirror room. It was lined floor to ceiling with reflective panels, each one alive with data streams and biometric graphs. At its center stood a single cylindrical console humming with light. Cowell's voice returned, everywhere at once. You still don't see it, do you, Claire? Haven isn't a place to destroy. It's an evolution to preserve what humanity wastes. Its potential. Hayes raised his weapon toward the console. You're harvesting people like cattle. Not harvesting, Cowell corrected calmly. Repurposing. The lights flickered. Panels shifted, showing recordings. Memories that weren't mine yet felt painfully familiar. Ethan's laughter, the first day of school, his hand slipping into mine during a thunderstorm. Then the images changed. Versions of me in different rooms, different lives, repeating the same choices over and over. I stepped closer, mesmerized. "What is this?" Cowell's tone softened. "Iterations. Every time a subject dies, we preserve their consciousness and rebuild the sequence. You've been here before, Claire. Many times." Hayes turned to me sharply. "Don't listen!" But the console flashed again, and a new image appeared. It was me, lying in the same hospital bed Ethan had been in. Tubes in my arms, monitors beeping. The timestamp read 3 years ago. I staggered back. "No, that can't be real." Cowell's reply was almost gentle. "You died, Claire. The version of you standing there is a reconstruction, a test. And Ethan, your real son, was the control sample." My breath hitched. "You're lying." Hayes grabbed my shoulder. "He's trying to break you. Don't let him." But deep down, something fractured. Memories that had never made sense suddenly aligned. Missing months. The way certain people looked at me with pity. The way doctors avoided questions about my records. If Cowell was telling the truth, I wasn't just fighting to save my son. I was fighting to prove I was real. Hayes leveled his gun at the console. "We end this now," Cowell sighed. "You can destroy the hardware, Captain, but Haven's network is distributed. You'll only erase her. Again." I looked at Hayes, voice trembling. "If he's right, destroying that core kills me." He hesitated. "You don't know that." "I think I do." The clones had gathered outside the glass walls, watching silently, their small faces pressed against the mirror panels. The sight tore something inside me. They weren't monsters. They were children who'd never been given a choice. I stepped toward the console. "Cowell, if I'm just data, then I can rewrite myself." He chuckled. "You wouldn't know where to start." I touched the surface. The symbols glowed brighter, lines of code cascading up the glass. My reflection fractured into 1,000 versions of myself. "You made me to obey," I whispered, "but you gave me memory, and memory learns." A warning tone blared. Hayes shouted, "Claire, whatever you're doing, make it fast!" Cowell's voice sharpened. "Stop! You'll trigger a collapse." "That's the idea." I slammed my hand onto the override key. Light exploded outward, flooding every panel. The mirrors cracked, shattering into silver dust. The clones outside screamed, not in pain but in release, as the power drained from their pods. The floor trembled. Hayes grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the exit. "Come on!" Behind us, the mirror room imploded, a spiral of light consuming itself until everything went white. When I opened my eyes, we were on the surface, outside the hospital ruins. Dawn breaking in faint orange light, smoke curled into the sky. Hayes sat beside me, bruised but alive. "You did it," he said hoarsely. I looked at my trembling hands. "Did I?" He frowned. "Claire!" I opened my coat pocket. The silver card was still there, but the symbol had changed. It no longer said Haven. Now it read, Elysium Protocol, initialization complete. The morning sun rose behind the smoking city, and as the card warmed in my hand, I realized the collapse hadn't ended Haven. It had awakened its next phase. For a long time, I didn't move. The city around us was still half asleep, unaware of the ruins smoldering beneath its streets. Smoke curled upward in lazy spirals that caught the dawn light and turned gold. Somewhere far below, Haven's foundations were collapsing into itself, the echoes fading like a dying heartbeat. Hayes crouched beside the overturned ambulance that had shielded us from the blast. His sleeve was torn, his face streaked with soot, but he was breathing. "You did it," he said quietly. "You shut them down." I wanted to believe him, but the card in my hand pulsed faintly, each glow in time with my own heartbeat. Elysium Protocol, initialization complete. The words shimmered on its surface like a new beginning that didn't belong to me. "They'll rebuild," I murmured. Hayes followed my gaze. "Then we make sure they can't." He scanned the horizon. Emergency sirens were beginning to wail in the distance. We've got maybe 10 minutes before every agency in this city shows up, asking questions neither of us can answer. I turned toward the half-collapsed entrance of the hospital. "Ethan's still inside." He caught my wrist. "Claire, listen to me. The facility's gone. If we go back in, we don't come out." "I can't leave him." He hesitated, then nodded once. 2 minutes. No more. We climbed over broken concrete and twisted rebar. The air smelled of ozone and antiseptic. Inside, the sterile white halls were scorched black, the mirrors shattered, the pods cracked open like eggshells. The silence was almost holy. "Ethan!" My voice echoed, thin and fragile. "Sweetheart, answer me." From the far end of the corridor came a weak cough. I ran. He was there, slumped beside a broken medical cart, alive, his small chest rising and falling. His skin was pale, but his eyes fluttered open when I touched his cheek. "Mom?" The sound of his voice undid me. I gathered him in my arms, sobbing. "I've got you. I'm here." Hayes scanned the area, weapon raised. "We need to move." Ethan clung to me, whispering. It's loud in my head. "What do you mean?" He pressed a hand to his temple. Voices like echoes. My stomach tightened. "The clones!" Hayes swore under his breath. They synced his neural data before the collapse. "If the protocol transferred..." He didn't finish. We both heard it. A faint mechanical hum rising again from the depths below. The sound of systems rebooting. "They're not gone," I whispered. Hayes shook his head. "They're evolving. Elysium wasn't a backup. It's a migration." The ground trembled. Along the wall, shattered screens flickered to life, showing lines of cascading code. One by one, faces appeared. Blurred at first, then sharpening into human forms. Not physical, but digital. Hundreds of preserved consciousnesses seeking new hosts. "Run!" Hayes said. We bolted through the corridor, carrying Ethan between us. The lights chased us like a rising tide, each panel flaring bright white before exploding in sparks. The building groaned, steel bending under pressure. We burst through the main entrance just as the ceiling gave way behind us. A plume of dust rolled out, choking the dawn air. Outside, I collapsed to my knees, clutching Ethan close. Hayes dropped beside us, coughing hard. For a few moments, none of us spoke. Only the wind moved, carrying the smell of burnt metal and the faint static buzz of electricity. Then Ethan stirred. He looked up at me, his voice oddly calm. "Mom, they're not angry." I froze. "What?" "They're waiting," he said. "They said I can show you." Hayes and I exchanged a look. "Who's they, son?" He smiled faintly, too faintly. The others. "They're inside now." I pulled back, staring into his eyes. For a brief second, a faint white shimmer rippled across his pupils, like reflected code. Hayes raised his gun instinctively. "Claire, don't!" I said sharply, wrapping my arms around Ethan. "He's still my son." Hayes lowered the weapon slowly. "Then we keep moving. We find somewhere off-grid before Elysium finishes whatever it's doing." I nodded, though my hands were trembling. In the distance, emergency drones buzzed toward the wreckage. Ethan leaned his head against my shoulder, whispering, "It's okay, Mom. They just want to live too." And in that quiet, almost tender moment, I realized the truth. Haven hadn't died at all. It had found a new home, inside the one thing I'd fought so hard to protect. As the first rescue sirens reached us, Ethan lifted his eyes toward the rising sun, and for a heartbeat, it flickered, as though something behind it had just awakened. By the time the rescue teams arrived, the world above Haven looked almost ordinary again. The sky had softened into gray-blue, and the first sunlight broke over the ruins, gilding the smoke with gold. But beneath that fragile calm, I could feel it. something humming, faint and patient, waiting to rise again. They wrapped Ethan in a thermal blanket and placed him on a stretcher. He looked so small beneath the weight of it all. My son, the center of every choice I'd made, every truth I'd broken to reach him. He watched the sky as though listening to something far away. A medic knelt beside me. "You should come with us, ma'am." "You need oxygen." I shook my head. "Just a minute." Hayes stood a few feet away, speaking in low tones to a uniformed officer. His face was tired, his stance rigid. He'd seen enough corruption to know how deep it ran. But what we'd seen tonight, it wasn't corruption. It was rebirth in disguise. When he returned, his voice was flat, but careful. "They're calling this a containment breach. Radiation leak, faulty systems. Anything but the truth." I gave a bitter smile. "Haven's first rule, rewrite the story before anyone else can." He nodded grimly. "They've already sealed the reports. Every name, every file wiped clean. Even Vanessa's death is marked as an unverified casualty." "Meaning?" "Meaning Haven didn't die down there, Claire. It went to sleep." I looked at Ethan again. His breathing had steadied. He was watching us, silent. But there was something in his eyes, an intelligence that didn't belong to a child. Not entirely. When the medics lifted him into the ambulance, his gaze met mine. For a moment the sunlight caught his eyes, and I swore I saw the faintest flicker. Binary patterns, pulsing white on gray-blue. Then it was gone. Hayes rested a hand on my shoulder. "He's alive. That's what matters." But his voice betrayed the doubt he didn't want me to hear. We rode in silence to the perimeter checkpoint. The city skyline grew sharper through the fog, the world continuing, unaware of what had almost claimed it. When we stopped, the officer at the gate waved us through without question. Hayes leaned closer. "I'll get him somewhere safe, off-grid. But we'll have to move fast before anyone tracks the vehicles." I nodded, though I wasn't really listening. My mind was still in that room. The mirror room, the faces, the voice whispering through the static. "You're part of the experiment now, Claire," Hayes said softly. "You with me?" "Yeah." I blinked, forcing myself back to the present. "What happens now?" He hesitated. "Now? We disappear. We burn everything that connects us to Haven, and we wait for them to resurface." I looked down at the silver card in my hands. The words had changed again. Not Elysium Protocol anymore. Just one line, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. "Welcome, Administrator. Access restored." I turned it over. The metal was warm, alive somehow, faintly humming. Hayes noticed. "You should destroy that thing." "I tried once," I said quietly. "When I was still running from them. It didn't burn. It didn't break, it just waited." He frowned. "Then you'd better find out what it's waiting for." I looked out the window. The city stretched before us. Beautiful, broken, unaware. Somewhere within those towers, someone else was already receiving the same signal, answering the same silent call. I whispered, "If Haven built copies of us, maybe it built copies of itself." Hayes started the engine. "Then we'll hunt every one of them." The ambulance carrying Ethan turned down another road ahead, sunlight flashing across its windshield. He was looking out the back window, his small hand pressed to the glass. I lifted mine in return. For just a second, I could have sworn I heard his voice inside my head. Soft, layered, echoing. "Don't be afraid, Mom. They're not gone. They're inside the light now." I froze. The card in my hand pulsed once, synchronizing perfectly with his words. Hayes didn't notice. He was already talking into the radio, planning safe houses, false IDs, next steps. But I wasn't listening anymore. My thoughts were somewhere else. Beneath the city, beneath the wreckage, where data and memory intertwined like roots, searching for air. I realized then, I hadn't destroyed Haven. I'd connected to it. And as the sun rose higher, washing the world in gold, the card glowed faintly in my palm, reflecting a new phrase that hadn't been there before. Phase 2. Initiating. 36% I stared at it, the warmth spreading up my wrist, into my pulse, into my mind. Haven wasn't dead. It had simply chosen a new host. Somewhere deep inside the static of the waking world, a voice whispered through the frequencies. Calm, familiar, and no longer entirely human. Good morning, Claire. In the end, truth doesn't just set you free. It shows you who you really are. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to get updates whenever I upload a new story.